Have you ever observed how a single thoughtless remark can steal your inner calm within moments? Your breathing tightens, your thoughts begin spinning wildly, and all at once, you find yourself losing control over your emotions. Yet, there exists a deeper paradox here. Nobody possesses the ability to trigger you unless there's something dwelling within that grants permission. As an ancient Buddhist teaching reminds us, the arrow causing the deepest pain is actually the one you aim at yourself. What if it became possible to completely stop emotional reactions, to truly master the management of anger, to finally become emotionally untouchable, regardless of what words others choose to speak? Before we continue, like is calm. Subscribe to Buddha's eternal wisdom. This is where each video creates a pathway toward calm, clarity, and ageless Buddhist understanding you simply won't discover elsewhere. And please, remain here until the final moment. A transformative bonus teaching awaits, one that could permanently shift how you perceive inner tranquility. 1. The wound responds, not your true self. The wound responds, not your authentic being. Allow this realization to settle softly, like a single leaf drifting down onto water that remains completely still. Have you ever observed this phenomenon? The identical phrase seems completely harmless on certain days, yet on others, it pierces straight through you. Why does an ordinary comment wound you deeply, even before your conscious mind forms any complete thought? The explanation lies hidden in a silent space within your being, a space where pain from the past continues waiting to be witnessed, continues waiting to be truly understood. They say, suffering exists precisely where awareness hasn't yet arrived, and whenever you hear something that creates a sharp feeling, it isn't actually the present moment inflicting harm upon you. It represents the accumulation of wounds from yesterday, rising up to make themselves heard, like a bell that only produces sound when something strikes it. The ringing doesn't originate from the hand making contact. It emerges from the hollow chamber existing inside the bell itself. Your reactions function similarly. They emerge from echoes stored deep within, not from whatever stands in front of you right now. In Buddhist understanding, this describes the fundamental nature of reactivity, a mind that carries pain it hasn't examined will interpret life as though constant attacks are occurring, not because life itself contains cruelty, but because old suffering continues creating reverberations. And in the world we inhabit today, filled with pressure, expectations, and emotional depletion, this bell gets struck numerous times throughout each day. A message arriving at work, a comment spoken by someone you deeply care for, a moment when misunderstanding occurs. Each instance makes contact with a past you haven't completely healed. Close your eyes briefly. Picture a tranquil lake during the earliest hours of dawn. Its surface creates ripples, not from stones being thrown into it today, but from stones that descended into its depths long, long ago. The disruption you experience within your heart frequently originates from memories, from narratives, and from beliefs that remain buried far beneath what appears on the surface. So pose this question to yourself gently. What story from your past speaks before your actual voice does? Which reactions carry a feeling that seems older than the moment where they make their appearance? In which part of your being does yesterday's bell continue ringing? When you begin perceiving this with clarity, something undergoes transformation. You come to realize that truly, nobody holds genuine power to trigger you. They merely activate something that already exists inside your being. And once you successfully identify the wound, once you choose to sit with its presence rather than flee from it, its dominion over your reactions starts diminishing. Suddenly, the world stops presenting itself as something so sharp and cutting. The words people speak lose their capacity to create wounds, because here stands the spiritual turning point. Peace doesn't arrive through controlling other people. It emerges from knowing yourself with profound depth. The precise moment you grasp the origin of your reaction, you become free, and the external world can no longer command what occurs within your inner state. Hold this moral truth close. The moment you achieve mastery over your internal world, the external world loses every bit of power it once held over you. We would deeply appreciate hearing your reflections. If uncertainty arises about what to express, simply write these words: "My peace is untouchable." 2. The ego transforms tiny sparks into raging fires. Why does the most minor inconvenience create a feeling like it's a personal assault aimed directly at you? Why does a small comment, a message that arrives late, or a harmless facial expression suddenly feel like a tempest specifically directed toward your being? There exists a silent truth concealed beneath these reactions. The ego takes sparks and transforms them into fires. It receives the gentlest whisper and somehow persuades you that thunder is approaching. And when your existence operates from this particular place, peace transforms into something you're perpetually chasing, yet never truly holding. Buddhist wisdom offers this reminder: when the self must constantly defend itself, peace cannot possibly remain. The ego flourishes through protection, through proving, through maintaining correctness. It interprets every tone, every gesture, every moment of silence as a threat directed at its very identity. But the deeper truth reveals this. A solitary spark lacks the ability to burn down an entire forest, unless dry leaves are there welcoming it. The ego represents those dry leaves, accumulated pride, wounds that remain unhealed, old narratives, and the stories you continuously tell yourself about who you're supposedly meant to be. These dry leaves ignite with instant speed, and suddenly, something tiny in scope becomes a blazing emotional response. In the world of today, this pattern happens without end. A friend neglects to send a reply. A colleague offers criticism regarding your idea. Someone voices disagreement with your opinion, and the mind erupts. Not because the moment carries true magnitude, but because the ego rushes forward to defend its constructed shape. It creates whispers in your consciousness. They don't respect your worth. They're launching an attack against you. They're attempting to make you feel smaller. And, before awareness arrives, your calm completely dissolves into frustration and cycles of overthinking. But envision something different now. Picture your mind taking a walk through a silent forest as the sun begins rising. You gently sweep away those dry leaves from the earth, clearing away the clutter that invites fire to spread. You leave absolutely nothing for sparks to attach themselves to. Without the ego's dry leaves, without its defensiveness, without its insecurities, without its demands, nothing catches fire. As a spark makes contact, it simply fades into nothing. You remain peaceful, because nothing remains inside your being that requires burning. Ask yourself now, what demand from your ego creates the majority of your anger? What expectations do you grip tightly that transform small moments into something unbearable? What would unfold if you stopped defending the self you believe you must protect? And which storms would simply vanish if you stopped feeding them with continuous thought? Here exists the turning point. The less energy you invest in defending your ego, the freer your existence becomes. What once created feelings of threat becomes nothing more than wind passing by. Nobody can trigger your being. When no ego sits waiting to catch fire, remember the moral truth. When you stop feeding the storm dwelling within, even the most powerful winds cannot shake your peace. 3. You create suffering when you claim ownership of words. If a stranger delivers an insult toward you in a language you cannot comprehend, you feel absolutely nothing. No sharp sting, no anger rising, no reaction whatsoever. What does this demonstrate about your suffering? It reveals that the pain never actually existed in the words themselves. It existed in the meaning you chose to attach to them. This represents the silent truth. You suffer when you claim ownership of words, when you allow them to settle inside your identity and claim space they were never intended to occupy. Buddhist wisdom states this: words are arrows. They can only create wounds in the identity you cling to. An arrow can fly through the air, but it pierces only what chooses to stand directly in its path. In the same way, the moment you decide a comment concerns you, you grant it permission to become personal. Without that ownership, the arrow falls harmlessly onto the ground. Most of the emotional pain you experience doesn't originate from what gets said. It originates from the identity within you, rising up to defend itself. Think for a moment about the frequency of this occurrence in daily existence. A remark about the work you do, a judgment about the choices you make, a careless opinion about your value, and suddenly your mind begins creating tightness. Not because the words contain inherent power, but because your sense of self experiences threat. You absorb the words instead of allowing them to pass through. You hold them, you replay them, you stitch them into your ongoing story, and they transform into suffering. But picture another way of existing. See yourself as a clear mirror positioned in a silent room. A mirror creates reflections of everything: light, movement, expression, yet it retains nothing. Nothing adheres to its surface. Nothing becomes part of its being. Now visualize the words of others floating in your direction, like soft clouds drifting. Instead of crashing into your being, they pass through you, as if you were transparent, as if nothing inside awaits to catch them. This represents the power of non-ownership. This is what freedom looks like. Ask yourself with gentleness, which identities create the most fragility within you? Where do you absorb instead of simply reflecting? And how would life present itself if you possessed nothing to defend, nothing to protect, nothing to constantly prove? Here lies the turning point. When you stop claiming ownership of words, you stop borrowing pain that never belonged to you. You become untouchable, not through building walls, but through dissolving the self that requires defending. Remember this truth: when you reflect instead of absorb, nobody's words can fracture your peace. We would deeply appreciate hearing your reflections. If uncertainty arises about what to express, simply write these words: my peace is untouchable. 4. The mind creates loudness only when the heart remains unseen. Why do thoughts scream with the greatest volume when you feel unseen, unheard, or unsupported? Why does the mind grow restless at the precise moment your heart feels most hidden? This represents the silent truth many forget. The mind becomes loud only when the heart goes unseen, when your inner world experiences longing for presence, for recognition, and for gentleness. It transmits signals through thought, not to create disturbance within you, but to guide you back toward yourself. Buddhist wisdom teaches this. Restlessness emerges exactly where presence goes missing. When you disconnect from your own emotional reality, the mind rushes inward to fill the empty space. It begins analyzing, exaggerating, worrying, and replaying moments, not because it wants to create trouble for you, but because it cannot locate the calm that emerges from an acknowledged heart. Thoughts become wind blowing through an empty temple hall. They echo loudly only when the inner space remains hollow. Think of the life you inhabit in modern times: constant demands, pressures, expectations, and fears of disappointing others. In all this noise, you frequently forget to check in with your own emotional truth. And the moment you abandon your heart, the mind steps forward with urgency. It becomes dramatic, fearful, unsettled, not because something is wrong with your mind, but because something within you needs presence, warmth, and understanding. Now picture this. Visualize softly lighting a warm candle inside your chest. Feel its gentle glow touching the corners of your inner world. As that light grows stronger, the echoing winds begin to fade. Thoughts quiet down, not through force, but through presence. Your heart is no longer unseen. It no longer needs the mind to scream for attention. This is how inner peace returns, not by fighting the mind, but by seeing the heart. Ask yourself, when is your mind the loudest? What missing presence is it begging you to notice? And what silence are you afraid to sit with? The silence that could actually heal you. Here lies the turning point. When you meet your own heart with compassion, the mind no longer needs to shout. When you give yourself presence, thoughts naturally soften. Nobody can trigger you easily, because your inner world is no longer empty or unattended. Your peace becomes rooted, not fragile. Remember this: when your heart is seen, your mind becomes silent, and in that silence, you reclaim your power. 5. Silence is a discipline, not an escape. What if silence doesn't mean the absence of sound, but instead represents the presence of control? Many people believe silence means running away, avoiding conflict, or hiding emotion. But true silence, the silence taught in Buddhist wisdom, is not escape. It is mastery. It is the steady hand that refuses to be shaken by noise. Because silence, when chosen consciously, is strength in its purest form. He who masters silence masters himself. This teaching is simple, yet profound. Silence is not weakness. It is discipline. It is the refusal to let the ego speak for you. The refusal to let anger spill from your tongue. The refusal to let chaos shape your responses. Think of a bowstring. It looks still, completely at rest, yet the greatest power hides in its quietness. The stillness is not emptiness. The stillness is potential. In modern life, your triggers often show up through words, criticism, misunderstanding, judgment, expectations, and the reflex is to respond instantly, to defend, to argue, to be right. But this quick reaction rarely restores peace. It only adds more fuel to inner fire. Silence, however, interrupts the cycle. It saves you from speaking from fear instead of wisdom. It allows your awareness to rise before your emotion does. It becomes the doorway back to your center. Now picture this. Visualize yourself drawing a silent bow. Feel your breath deepen. Notice how your shoulders relax, how your attention gathers gently, not tightly. In this quiet pulling back, there is no tension, only calm strength. Silence works the same way. It gathers your energy, collects your clarity, and prepares your next action with intention instead of impulse. Nothing can easily trigger you when your inner bow is drawn with awareness. Ask yourself softly, when do you speak from fear instead of wisdom? Where can silence protect your peace rather than shrink your voice? And what power lies in saying nothing? In letting your calmness speak louder than your reaction ever could? Here lies the turning point. Silence is not retreat. Silence is strategy. It is the highest form of emotional intelligence, the choice that transforms chaos into clarity. When you embrace intentional silence, people lose the ability to disturb your inner world. You respond only when your heart is steady, not when your wounds are loud. Remember this truth: the one who rules their silence rules their peace, and no trigger can reach the mind that speaks only from clarity. 6. Letting go isn't weakness, it's mastery. Why does holding on to reactions feel powerful, yet releasing them brings a deeper strength? This is one of the subtle paradoxes of the inner world. The mind believes that gripping tightly onto anger, pride, hurt, or the need to be right gives us power. But Buddhist wisdom reveals the opposite truth. Letting go isn't weakness, it is mastery. It is the strength of someone who no longer needs to wrestle with every emotion that rises. Only the empty hand can carry peace. When your inner hand is full of old reactions, there is no space for calm. When your heart is packed with past grievances and emotional tension, peace has nowhere to rest. Holding on may feel like protection, but it actually becomes a prison. You spend so much energy gripping pain that you lose the ability to move freely through life. Think of the metaphor. A clenched fist cannot catch flowing water, but an open palm receives everything effortlessly. This is the nature of emotional freedom. A closed mind resists the moment, argues with it, fights it, but an open mind, one that has released the urge to hold on, allows life to move without resistance. And in that openness, nothing can trigger you easily, because there is nothing for the moment to collide with. Now visualize this. Imagine unclenching your mental fist. Feel the tension leaving your fingers, your thoughts, your chest. See the water of the moment running gently through your open palm, cool, calm, neither controlled nor resisted. This is the sensation of letting go, not losing, not surrendering to weakness, but allowing peace to return by removing the inner blockage. Ask yourself sincerely, what are you gripping that is gripping you back? Which reactions drain your strength every time they rise? And what becomes possible when you open your hand, when you allow the moment to pass instead of holding it hostage inside your mind? Here lies the turning point. Mastery is not about controlling every emotion, it's about not being controlled by any of them. Letting go is the path that frees your energy, clears your vision, and softens your heart. When you release the urge to hold on, nothing outside you can dictate your inner state. Triggered reactions dissolve because you have nothing left to defend. Remember this moral truth. The one who lets go is the one who rises, for an open hand can hold peace, strength, and clarity all at once. We would deeply appreciate hearing your reflections. If uncertainty arises about what to express, simply write these words: "My peace is untouchable." 7. You become untouchable when you stop participating in drama. What if you could step out of emotional games without anyone even realizing you left? What if the chaos around you continued, but you remained untouched, like a calm mountain beneath a noisy sky? This is the quiet strength hidden in Buddhist wisdom. You become untouchable the moment you stop participating in drama, because most of what disturbs you isn't the situation itself. It's the energy you feed into it. Drama survives only when you feed it. This truth is simple, yet life-changing. Conflict, gossip, arguments, emotional games, they all need your attention to survive. Your reaction becomes their fuel. Your engagement becomes their oxygen. Without you, the fire fades. Like a flame that cannot burn when there is no oxygen, chaos cannot continue when you refuse to breathe life into it. Think of your daily life. Someone's mood swings, a passive comment, a guilt-driven message, a heated argument waiting for your response. These moments only grow when you invest your emotion, when you defend, explain, argue, or try to control the outcome. You become part of the drama's foundation. But the moment you step out, calmly, silently, without proving anything, something shifts. The fire flickers, the storm weakens, and you realize you were never trapped. You were simply participating. Now visualize this. Imagine a tiny flame flickering in front of you, the flame of someone else's chaos, their expectations, their emotional noise. With a single gentle breath, you blow it out, quietly, effortlessly, no force, no resistance, just a simple refusal to feed what does not deserve your peace. This is what emotional mastery feels like, not fighting fire with fire, but removing the oxygen that keeps the fire alive. Reflect gently. Whose chaos are you breathing life into? What happens when you stop reacting, Stop proving. Stop trying to fix what was never yours. And which situations immediately lose power when you simply leave the game, choosing peace over participation? Here lies the turning point. You become untouchable, not by hardening yourself, but by withdrawing your energy from anything that doesn't align with your calm. Drama ends the moment you decide not to play. Peace begins the moment you walk away. Without anger, without explanation, just clarity. Remember this moral truth. Nothing can pull you into chaos when your attention no longer fuels the flame. 8. Emotional freedom begins when you stop explaining yourself. Why do you feel exhausted after defending your intentions, your heart, your choices? Why does explaining yourself drain you more than the situation itself? The truth is simple but often forgotten. Emotional freedom begins the moment you stop explaining yourself, because every time you justify your actions, you hand your peace over to someone else's approval, and your inner world becomes vulnerable to every misunderstanding, every opinion, every judgment that isn't even yours to carry. Buddhist wisdom reminds us, a pure action needs no justification. When your choices come from clarity, compassion, and sincerity, they do not require validation. They stand on their own. It is only when doubt, fear, or ego interfere that you feel the urge to explain. But when your heart is aligned with truth, you realize that understanding is a gift, not an obligation, and not everyone is ready to receive it. Picture the metaphor. A river never explains its path, yet it always reaches the ocean. It flows around stones, curves around mountains, moves through darkness and light. But it never stops to justify why. Its nature is to move. Its purpose is to reach. Your life is the same. When you stop narrating your every step to the world, you find the freedom to move with your own rhythm, your own wisdom, your own quiet strength. Now gently imagine yourself as that river. Feel your energy flowing forward, calm and certain. You do not need approval to continue. You do not need permission to exist as you are. You do not need the world to understand every feeling or every decision. Like a river, your clarity is enough to keep you moving toward what is meant for you. Ask yourself with honesty, who are you trying to convince? Yourself or someone who has already decided not to understand? What truth within you requires no explanation at all? And how would life feel if you stopped seeking permission to choose your peace, your boundaries, your path? Here lies the turning point. The less you explain, the more you reclaim. You protect your energy. You conserve your emotional strength. You stop tying your self-worth to whether others agree with you. And suddenly, triggers lose their impact, because nothing destabilizes you when your truth is no longer up for negotiation. Remember this: when your actions are pure, silence becomes your strongest statement, and no one can trigger a heart that flows like a river toward its own truth. 9. Pain persists only when you touch it often. Why do old memories still hurt, even when the moment has long passed? Why does a single thought from years ago still sting, as if it happened this morning? This is the quiet truth hidden in the heart. Pain persists only when you touch it often. The mind returns to old wounds, not because it enjoys suffering, but because it hasn't learned to walk past the place where it was once broken. Buddhist wisdom reminds us, a wound kept open never heals. No matter how much time passes, if you keep pulling at the stitches, the pain remains fresh. And every time you revisit the memory, replaying conversations, rewriting endings, trying to understand what went wrong, you press your fingers into a wound that is trying so hard to close. Imagine the metaphor clearly. A traveler keeps returning to a thorn bush, surprised each time that the thorn still pricks him. He forgets that the pain is not a mystery. It is simply the result of touching what needs to be left alone. Your emotional life is no different. Some moments are thorn bushes, some memories are sharp, and yet the mind circles back, hoping the thorn will feel different this time. But the pain remains because you keep searching for it. Now visualize something gentle, something freeing. Picture yourself walking past that thorn bush. Notice how the air feels as you move forward, without stopping, without touching, without revisiting. The pain stays behind you, the thorn remains where it is, but it no longer commands your attention. This is what emotional maturity feels like, not erasing the past, but refusing to reopen it. Ask yourself quietly, which memory do you keep reopening, even though it asks you to let go? What thorn would stop hurting the moment you stop touching it? And what freedom waits on the path beyond that moment? The path you've been avoiding because the past keeps calling your name? Here lies the turning point. Healing does not happen by examining the wound endlessly. Healing happens when you stop feeding the memory with fresh attention. When you stop giving yesterday the power to shape your inner state today. When you stop touching what aches. In that moment, you become untriggerable, because nothing inside you remains raw or exposed. Remember, you free yourself the moment you stop revisiting the pain. A memory cannot hurt you when your heart has already walked beyond it. We would deeply appreciate hearing your reflections. If uncertainty arises about what to express, simply write these words: my peace is untouchable. 10. Peace arrives when you no longer chase control. Why does trying to control your emotions only make them louder, stronger, harder to hold? Why does the more you resist a feeling, the more it seems to tighten around your chest? This is the quiet paradox of the inner world. Peace arrives when you no longer chase control. The very effort to dominate your emotions becomes the source of your suffering. Buddhist wisdom teaches, control is the tension that creates resistance. The more you tighten your grip around an emotion, fear, anger, sadness, uncertainty, the more it pushes back. Like a fist clenched around water, the harder you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Control doesn't calm the mind, it suffocates it. And the moment you stop trying to manage every feeling, every thought, every outcome, something softens, something opens. Peace slips in through the space created by surrender. Think about your daily life. You try to control how people see you, control how conversations unfold, control how others behave, control the pace of your healing, control your reactions so no one can hurt you. But each attempt adds more pressure, more internal friction, more fear. You begin to live in a constant state of holding on, and the holding becomes heavier than the emotion itself. Control becomes a cage disguised as protection. Now picture this clearly. See yourself trying to hold water in your fist. Watch how it slips through the cracks, escaping no matter how determined you are to hold on. Then imagine opening your hand, palm relaxed, spacious. The water rests peacefully now. It is no longer something you must chase or grip. This is the power of letting go of control. Emotions settle naturally when you stop trying to manage them. They pass through you without carving wounds. They become visitors, not threats. Ask yourself gently, what emotion are you constantly trying to control? What happens inside you when you stop fighting it and simply allow it to be? And where in your life could surrender bring more clarity, more breath, more calm? Here lies the turning point. Surrender is not defeat. Surrender is wisdom. It is the understanding that control was never the path to peace. Awareness was, presence was, acceptance was. When you stop forcing your inner world to behave a certain way, your reactions lose their sharpness, your emotions lose their urgency, and the world loses its ability to trigger you. Remember this moral truth. When you release the need to control, peace returns to its rightful place, quietly, naturally, effortlessly, within you. 11. The present moment cannot hurt you. Why do certain moments feel heavy, sharp, or overwhelming, even when nothing is actually happening in front of you? Why can a single word, a look, or a tone awaken a storm that seems far bigger than the present moment itself? The truth is simple and deeply compassionate. What hurts you is rarely now. It is the echo of yesterday. If triggers arise from past wounds, then what truly exists in the purity of this moment? Buddhist wisdom reminds us, the now is untouched by yesterday. The present moment is like a fresh layer of snow falling gently over a landscape marked by countless old footprints. Every scar, every memory, every old hurt may live in your mind, but the moment you return to the present, the fresh snow covers everything. The world resets, your breath resets, you reset. The now is innocent, unburdened, and untouched by the wounds you keep carrying forward. Imagine yourself walking through a silent winter forest. A pure blanket of snow covers the earth. No footprints, no paths, no remnants of who you were or what happened before. As you take each step, the snow accepts you gently, quietly, without judgment. This is the present moment. Every step is new, every breath is new. Here, nothing from the past can harm you, unless you bring it with you. When triggers rise, they are not the world attacking you. They are echoes, reminders, old stories asking to be released. And when you root yourself in the now, when you feel the breath entering and leaving your body, you step out of the storm of memory. You return to the untouched snow. You return to the peace that is always available beneath the noise of thought. Ask yourself, what part of your pain is actually old? What is this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, this exact here and now, completely free from? And what disappears when you stop traveling into the past and stand fully here? This is the quiet mastery of emotional freedom, realizing that the present moment cannot hurt you, not because life is perfect, not because pain doesn't exist, but because this moment is always fresh, always free, always offering you a new beginning. Remember the moral truth. When you step into the now, the weight of yesterday falls away, and nothing, no person, no memory, can disturb the peace already living within you. Bonus lesson: the watcher can never be wounded. What if the strongest part of you isn't the one who feels, reacts, or remembers, but the one who quietly notices it all? There is a sacred space within you, ancient, unmoving, untouched, where no insult can reach, no memory can harm, and no emotion can overpower. This is the watcher, the witness, the silent awareness that has been with you since your first breath, and it has never been harmed, not even once. Buddhist wisdom teaches that the witness is beyond disturbance. This is not just poetic, it's a direct truth. When you shift from being the storm to watching the storm, something remarkable happens. The waves may rise, but you no longer drown. Thoughts may shout, but they no longer define you. Emotions may flare, but they no longer shake your foundation. You become the sky, not the passing weather. Picture yourself as a mountain, vast, steady, and timeless. Clouds drift above, winds roar, rain pours, sunlight appears and disappears. But the mountain does not move, it does not panic. It doesn't cling to the storm or chase the sunlight. It simply watches, and in that calm watching, it stays unbroken. This is who you are beneath fear, identity, memory, and reaction. Every trigger you've ever felt came from forgetting this truth. You thought you were the cloud instead of the mountain. You thought you were the passing emotion instead of the awareness that sees it. But the watcher cannot be wounded. It doesn't take insults personally. It doesn't carry the past. It doesn't fear the future. It simply sees, and through seeing, it stays free. Bring this into your daily life gently. When emotion rises, watch it. When anger sparks, observe the spark. When someone tries to pull you into conflict, remain as the silent mountain. Notice how quickly the storm loses strength when you witness instead of react. Ask yourself, what happens when I watch instead of react? Who is the me behind the thoughts, the one noticing them come and go? And how would life change if I lived as the watcher, steady and vast, like a mountain that no passing weather could harm? Remember this final truth. You become untriggerable not by hardening, but by awakening, by resting as the one who sees everything, feels everything, yet remains untouched. Quick summary of the principles. The wound reacts, not you. Your reactions come from old emotional residue, not the present moment. When someone triggers you, it's your inner wound responding, not your true self. Awareness of these patterns begins to dissolve their power. Healing starts when you stop identifying with the reaction. The ego turns sparks into fires. Small moments feel overwhelming because the ego treats discomfort as danger. It exaggerates small issues into major emotional events. Seeing this illusion immediately softens your reactions. As the ego loosens, emotional storms lose strength. You suffer when you take words personally. Words hurt only when your identity clings to them. The more you attach your worth to opinions and validation, the easier it becomes for others to shake you. Freedom begins when you stop absorbing everything as a personal attack. Emotional pain fades when identity loosens. The mind grows loud when the heart is unseen. Your mind becomes restless when deeper emotional needs are ignored. Overthinking is often a sign of unrecognized pain and loneliness or inner conflict. When you reconnect with your heart space, mental noise softens on its own. Stillness appears when turning inward becomes your habit. Silence is a discipline, not an escape. True silence is mastery of reaction, not avoidance. When you train yourself to pause before responding, your inner strength grows. Silence helps you see clearly without emotional distortion. It becomes a tool for clarity and stability. Letting go is not weakness, it's mastery. Trying to control reactions creates more tension. Letting go dissolves that tension and opens space for wisdom. Release isn't surrender. It's choosing peace over unnecessary battles. Emotional strength grows when you stop gripping what no longer serves you. You become untouchable when you stop participating. Emotional drama survives only when you join it. When you step away from the emotional games people play, their chaos loses its influence. Protecting your peace often means refusing to enter conflict. Non-participation becomes a quiet form of mastery. Emotional freedom begins when you stop explaining yourself. Defending your choices drains energy and creates tension. True alignment needs no defense. When your actions come from clarity, you no longer feel the urge to justify yourself. This brings calm confidence and inner freedom. Pain lasts only when you touch it. Revisiting old memories keeps wounds alive. The past continues hurting you only when you keep opening it. Healing begins when you stop feeding painful memories with attention. Peace grows when you allow old chapters to close. Peace arrives when you stop chasing control. Trying to control emotions or people increases stress and resistance. Peace doesn't come through control. It comes from allowing things to be as they are. Accepting the moment reduces inner friction. Surrender often becomes the doorway to stability. The present moment cannot hurt you. Most triggers are echoes from the past, not reflections of now. When you fully enter the present, old pain loses its hold. The now carries no wounds, only awareness. Returning to the present is returning to peace. The watcher can never be wounded. Thoughts and emotions rise and fade, but the observer stays unchanged. When you shift from being the reaction to watching the reaction, nothing can truly disturb you. This awareness is the root of emotional invincibility. The watcher is your highest self, untouched and steady. In the end, emotional freedom comes not from changing the world, but from understanding yourself so deeply that nothing outside can shake your center. When you see the triggers reflect your inner state, not others' intentions, you reclaim your power. This is the path of awakening, responding from clarity, not wounds, choosing presence over patterns, standing in a peace no one can take. When the mind becomes clear, the world loses the ability to control you. Choose to live from that clarity. Protect your peace. Watch your inner world with compassion. Every moment gives you a chance to practice awareness.